Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to the Popternative Podcast, the podcast and talk show where we have digital discussions from the worlds of TV, film, pop culture, social media, news, everything really depending on the guest. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Peter Remoliotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. You'll recognize my guests from some really cool TV shows, including You, which was on Netflix, and Heathers as well from Paramount. James Scully is with us. James, welcome to Popternative, man.
Thank you for having me.
No problem. I feel like just kind of an icebreaker question we always ask on this show is, you know, I said you were an actor, but you could also kind of say that you were a storyteller, because that's what I call people in the entertainment industry. You were all storytellers. When did James Scully decide that he wanted to be a storyteller?
You know, in retrospect, I was like trying to be an actor from the age of like 3, and sometimes I'm sad that I wasn't one of those kids who was able to convince my parents to just move to Los Angeles and start submitting me for things, because I was always the kid who was like, oh, are we doing like a skit in class, or are we doing like a Christmas pageant? I want to be the lead in that. Like, I should be the person with the most lines. I don't know that it really like solidified as like, oh, this is what I want to like actually try and do for a career until my senior year of college, or no, senior year of high school. I went to a performing arts high school because I really enjoyed it. And then as we were applying for college, it was sort of like, okay, now it's time to decide like what you might want to do with the rest of your life. And up until then, I'd sort of been flying by the seat of my pants, but I had a few teachers in high school, fortunately, who believed in me, and they were like, you should really double down on this. You should actually try and do this because we think you would be good at it. So.
You are good at it.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
It's kind of interesting. I find, you know, people will recognize yourself. I was going to say people will recognize you from You, so I was trying to kind of say it a bit of a different way.
It's a tricky show name for sure. Yeah.
Well, people will recognize you from You on Netflix. And very interesting kind of path of a TV show, in my opinion, because you know, I believe a Lifetime show for season 1 gets picked up like syndication on Netflix, right? So people are kind of watching it on Netflix, right? And then becomes a big hit, right? And it was funny because it was part of I remember the holiday season where there was that, and there was Bandersnatch from Black Mirror, and Bird Box. Like, I feel like those three things kind of took over when it came out.
Dark Christmas.
Yes, but then you kind of exactly. But you show up in season 2. Season 2 becomes like an actual like Netflix production. Like, it's not part of Lifetime anymore.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original now.
Exactly. So, a couple of questions for you specifically as 40. Like, what was that kind of like playing that character, and what was it kind of like being part of a show that had that path that just became kind of massive and exploded kind of over time?
It was, so being 40 was crazy. It was a lot of fun at the table reads, especially because most of my lines were just like joke. But then once we got on set, it was a little stressful sometimes, because frequently 40's function in any episode was to just like walk into a happy scene and then self-destruct emotionally. So by like the 4th or 5th episode, by my like 4th or 5th time getting high and throwing a temper tantrum, I was starting to kind of be like, oh man, it's like a lot of screaming and a lot of crying, and like a lot of like, if I had $1 for every time they wrote into the script like 40 with tears in his eyes, which it worked, you know, it all worked out, it all panned out. But he was both a blessing and a curse. In terms of coming on the show, I like waiting to hear back on whether or not I was going to be cast for like 2 weeks, right around when the show was blowing up. Like, everyone was texting me being like, have you watched You on Netflix? Oh my God, it's so good. And I was just like sitting at my friend's house in Los Angeles being like, if I don't get hired to be on this show with all of this buzz, because I was very close. I knew I was very close at that point. And then when I found out Victoria was going to be Love, because I had just binge watched The Haunting of Hill House. yeah, I was like, it has to be me. If it's somebody else, I'm retiring. I'm like moving to somewhere. I can't
It's
do
true
this.
because there's a lot of waiting games. You think that's a misconception too of the actor life, that you guys are waiting a long time to find out what's going on?
Yeah, well, sometimes you audition on Monday, and then on Wednesday they're like, "Great, so you're leaving for like Canada tomorrow. Congratulations."
Oh,
But
okay.
this job, I submitted a tape from New York, and then I flew out to Los Angeles earlier than I was going to, and auditioned in front of the like creative team, the
Hmm.
producers and stuff.
Yep.
And I went in. It was one of those auditions where I did each scene once, and they were like, "Okay, thank you." And I was like, "You don't want me to like do it standing on my head or do it juggling? You don't want anything else?" And they were like, "Nope, that was great." So then I left. Then I went home for Thanksgiving, and my family was like, "What's up? Like, what's happening in your life right now?" And I was like, "Maybe something really good." And then I came back, or I guess I went home for Christmas, unclear. But I came back to Los Angeles, hadn't heard anything. Um, and it was like 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks, I think, between my audition for the creative team and the day that I found out that I got it. And that was a lot. I mean, I was starting to just kind of, I was like, it's not happening for me, or like forgot, or like the show's been postponed again or something. Um, but yeah, the waiting period, and then worse, the waiting period is between when you found out you got the job and then when you actually started filming, because you're just, it's like you like know that you have the job to do and you're like trying to get ready to do it, but you don't really know what it's going to feel like and what it's going to look like until you're there on set, with the set and the costumes and the lights and the other creatives.
Yeah.
But yes, being an actor is a lot of waiting for
And
sure.
and a thing I do want to also mention, it's kind of more of like of a kind of general thing about kind of
Mhm.
the industry, but kind of ties into you because you were on Heather's on
Mhm.
Paramount, and I want to talk to you a little bit about adapted kind of content, adapted television,
Yeah.
adapted movies, because we're seeing a big trend, I think, James,
Mhm.
of a lot of stuff. Because obviously Heather's was a show, but before that
Yeah.
it was a movie, right? It was
Mhm.
pre-existing. I'm seeing it like a lot of different things now are becoming like adapted like
Mhm.
to TV and film, like graphic novels, and like I know I was talking to someone about this, like plays, like playwrights and everything, like it's always been
Mhm.
around, but I find it's been more, you know what I mean? There's been like, it seems like there's been more plays too that are being adapted into kind of TV shows. What do you kind of think about that landscape right now, about things being kind of adapted?
So I think it's like sort of an intersection of two things, right? I think first of all, like what arguably is like the most powerful entertainment dynasty right now in the world. And I would say if it's not the top, it's definitely in the top three, is the Marvel franchise,
Yep.
right? They are making so many movies and so much money because they found right, and they figured out how to like leverage it correctly to an audience. So I think that that encouraged, um, we've also then seen the DC side of that, but I think like comic boom or the graphic novel boom is
Yeah.
like a reflection of that. I think people were like, okay, what like independent comics can we buy and make it? So now you have like The Boys, you have all these cartoons that were originally
Umbrella
graphic
Academy.
novels. There you go. And so there's that. I think people are just realizing the gold mine of not having to like write an original script, right? And I think maybe even writers and showrunners are realizing like instead of just like pulling a pitch like out of my ear, I can come in and be like, look at this already very successful graphic novel or this book or this play. Like, I'm just going to make this into a television show. And it's a safe bet that people are going to want to watch it because it already has an audience in print. Um, I think also the internet has made like Broadway has made plays, has made all of this stuff that might have been more available only to a localized audience, suddenly available to the entire country or the entire planet. So things like Hamilton, even though not everybody in America or the world can afford to fly to New York and buy a ticket to Hamilton and sit in the theater and watch it, now they can watch it on Disney Plus or they can listen to it on Spotify. So same thing with In the Heights, same thing with West Side
So like
Story.
access.
Yes, producers know, they're like, okay, even if everybody hasn't, and in fact, that's more of an incentive, right? They're like, because people can't go to New York and watch these plays, these musicals, these live theater productions on Broadway. Let's make them into a movie. Let's like make them into a live cast and put them on a streaming network.
It's funny too, because I remember, and this was kind of a point in my time where I was like, man, I'm really getting old, because you know how sometimes they remake movies and sometimes the movies are just remade where it's just like it's similar, but like it's different actors.
Yeah.
Cabin Fever, which was, you know, with Sean from Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World, like that one, right? And then Eli Roth remade it like a couple of years ago, and it was great, but it was like the same movie. You know what I mean? Like I knew what was gonna happen, so I was like, you know, I'm feeling old. That like.
Sometimes I watch my favorite movies, my like favorite old movies, and I think it's just that like thing of, but what if we made it now? Like with all of the new cameras we have and all the new technology and all the new editing software we have, like what if we were able to like do it and do it better?
You're bringing up good points. Like you're knocking it out of the park right now. I just want to say.
Yeah, thank you. I'm trying. It's the coffee. It's all the coffee.
Caffeinated. No, that is a good point though, right?
Cafe Bustelo.
That's a good point. We have more. There's like more things to make it look kind of good, right?
I will say though, and this is, you know, we were sort of talking about it before we got started, and this would be my answer. I'm not going to specify which project I'm talking about, but sometimes I feel like the issue with reboots is that they do bring in all of the snazzy new technology, the snazzy new costumes, new like younger actors, like a new generation of talent, but they don't change the material enough. Like if I'm going to watch Cabin Fever again, I want to watch a totally zany departure from what the first Cabin Fever was. I think there's a way to hold on to like the core nuggets of a story, but make everything around that completely
Have you
different.
seen them though?
The Cabin Fevers?
Yeah.
No, I'm speaking about those totally.
Okay, no, I'm just curious though, because if you kind of relate, because it's like, and I feel it just seems like I love them both.
They're scared, right? They're like, we want to remake the movie and we want it to be like better, but not better in a way that like insults what the original was.
No.
And we don't want to upset the original fan base, but we also want to make it palatable to a new audience. And it's like, well, you got to choose your lane, right? You can't be straddling. Like it's going to be kind of like the same movie that you already watched, but just like in 4D HK or whatever.
But you mentioned like nerd culture, geek culture becoming kind of like mainstream and popular, and it's like cool to be a nerd. I remember when I was younger, I was wearing a Spider-Man shirt. I would get made fun of all the time, and it's like, I'm not. No,
now Marvel is it. Now all of those characters are,
But another thing too, kind of going to my Cabin Fever thing, is have you noticed, you might not like them, you know what I mean, but people have to understand that the horror movie industry is like insane right now.
Oh, horror is like if I can find a movie that I watch that like genuinely scares me.
So you're a big horror movie guy?
Yeah, it's gonna be my favorite kind of movie, because it's hard to like, right? It's a difficult thing to literally provoke a reaction from an audience member. I'll see movies that I really, really like, but I'm sitting the whole time watching the movie and I'm like, okay, that was like a nice movie. I'm glad that I watched that. But a horror movie, that's a genre that's capable of literally reaching out into your body and making, like, forcing something out of you.
Wow.
So when they do that effectively, it's like super, like I would love to be in a horror movie.
I'm writing a short horror film because it's just a passion. It's like a passion project of mine. No, but here's the thing. I'm gonna send you. I didn't realize you're a big horror movie guy. I'm gonna send you a list. I have like a list of movies because I'm kind of picky with my horror movies. I am, right? But I dissect them when I watch them too, right? And I kind of have like this rankings of what I think is good because I'm a fan of. I don't need. You know, there's great horror movies that have a lot of gore and a lot of jump scares, and I get that, but I'm afraid. I like the stuff like I'm the big fan, James, of Dinner Party Gone Wrong. People show up to a dinner party. This guy's acting weird. What's going on with this guy? Oh wait, but she's just said something now that sounds like it's going to be terrifying in the next 10 minutes.
Have you seen? Speaking of remakes, have you seen the remake of Funny Games?
Yes.
So
the remote control ruined my life.
Exactly.
Ruined my life.
That's another great movie where for the first 45 minutes, you're just like, oh, I know something bad is gonna happen. Like I'm so tense.
I got
I know
so
something bad is
upset.
gonna happen. Yeah.
That's the type of movie that I will never forget where I was. I remember I came back from soccer practice, and I came back, and I was just eating some Domino's pizza. I remember that day, and it was on, and I watched it, and I was tired, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to watch this, and I just watched it. I put it on, and it, like, I went to bed, and I was like, that remote control scene just like ruined it.
You feel like sick for that family. You're like, God.
Why did they do that?
Because again, because the creator of that film was like, oh, I don't want to just, this isn't just going to be like a, like I want to immerse my audience in the like unpleasant experience of being like stalked and tortured and murdered.
Have you seen, so I'm like I said, I'm going to email you a list of movies, and I'm sure you've seen most of them, but there's some really good gems in them. Because there's like a crop of like movies from like 2017 to like 2020. Like there's like a 3-4 year like window where they're just pumping out unreal movies. Like it's like in that genre. It's crazy. But have you seen The Invitation on Netflix?
Invitation?
Oh, that is like the dinner party gone wrong.
I've also, especially in COVID, I feel like I've consumed so much content.
Okay, so when I send you the list, you'll kind of see what you saw and what you haven't.
I'll have to go and like look up the movies and be like, oh yes, I did watch this. I watched this in the month of quarantine.
It's just like, it's almost like hot sauce. Remember when hot sauce was like the trendiest thing? Do you remember that? Like there was like, do you remember when hot sauce was like a food trend where everyone was doing hot sauce? They had hot ones.
Sriracha? Yeah.
Yeah, sriracha. It's like horror movies are like the new like trendy thing now. Like it's like a trend.
People are finding all of these like old scary books that were written in like, I don't know, the late 19th century. And they're like, oh, like the person who wrote this is dead and has been gone for a really long time. We can buy this book for like a nickel and make it into a horror movie and people will love it. So yeah, I think it's that issue of like where the cheap but valuable IP is.
Did you see The Invisible Man?
With Elizabeth Moss?
Yes.
I did. Talk about another movie.
That was unbelievable.
I think the whole movie is really good, but my like favorite part of that movie is like that first opening scene, like her, spoiler alert for anybody watching this, but her escaping from the house and just immediately starting the story with that much like, and you know right away what's happening. She doesn't have to say anything. You're like, oh shit. This is a woman running away from a toxic, abusive relationship.
But also the paint. Remember the paint?
The paint, and also just
the panning
to empty hallways, and just holding on an empty hallway.
Scared me because they also put like a score, like when like
they put like a musical like
yeah. And no, but it's just
a moment. I was sitting at home in the safety of my apartment, and I was still like, shit, oh my God. Like,
did you watch Host on Shudder? Did you watch Host?
Did I watch Host on Shudder? No, I have a Shudder account. I should just get one.
That was the movie they made over Zoom during the pandemic, where they're having like a Zoom call and they do a seance, and then shit gets real. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen. It's scary.
Wow. So insane how people have like found ways around.
I still don't know
COVID
how they've got. I still don't know. Like I've interviewed the cast on my show as well. And like I don't know how they got some of the shots. Like it doesn't make sense to like it's insane how they pulled off because they're all on their own cameras like this, right? No, but they're all on. They're all like we're like this. They're like this, right? So they're literally doing it from their computer. And some of these shots, right? Because like a ghost is kind of there's a spirit around. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know how they got some of those shots. Like it's crazy to me. Like,
well, look, if you assign an actor the job of getting their own shot of themselves with a laptop, they're gonna make sure it looks good. You know what I'm saying?
But there's just certain things like chairs move, right? And it's like, how the hell did that chair move? Like, how did you do that? You're just sitting there. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, like, it just blew my mind.
Strings that had a really down. Yeah. Well, I mean, on one hand, I hope that the quarantine and COVID is, eradicated very, very soon. But I hope that we don't lose this like fun layer of creativity that it's brought to the entertainment industry,
No, it
because
is.
people have been getting really creative.
Oh, for sure. It's been crazy. Well, James, thank you so much for coming on Popternative, man. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this was so much fun. I look forward to your horror movie list, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
Um, Scully and James is my Instagram handle. I don't really use it as much as I should anymore, just because it's, you've been on social media lately. It's a dicey time.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's where I am located.
Amazing.
Virtually is Scully and James on Instagram.
I will
I
send
don't
you
have
that list.
because I'm not brave enough.
I
But
will send you that list. And
awesome. All right, thanks.
it will be awesome. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is James Scully and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.